In this video, we are going to examine of how to implement geospatial technology into California's K12 classroom that is easy, fast, and inexpensive, and to how to deliver it for the benefit for as many students as possible. In 2004, the United States Department of Labor listed geospatial technology as one of the three most important for the 21st century. And even though California is home of the geospatial technology, its use in California K12 education as an instructional tool is the least of any of the states in the Union. As geospatial technology has evolved, and particularly today with the use of web mapping and story map functions, it has never become so accessible and applicable and easy to use in the K12 classroom. The use of web mapping as an instructional tool greatly improves students' ability to filter information and comprehend it and retain it over a longer period of time. The use of the technology is very visual, and it can be used across the content area. Because of the importance and the benefits of this technology, most recently the state of California, in the adoption of the new history social science framework, has included geospatial technology as an instructional tool with some specific intentions and expectations. And today, where we are at, this is a very much of a reason why to begin utilizing this technology as an instructional tool in the California K12 classroom. In this video, we are going to present the strategy to bring this technology to the students and use by your teachers, from the simplest to the most complex, and also looking at a strategy of beginning at the upper elementary grade levels and moving on up grade level over time. Through this order, we're going to look at 5 different tools. We are going to begin with structured exercises, which can be used at all grade levels. Then we're going to begin looking at a simple web mapping interface, National Geographic Map Maker, which is most appropriate to begin at the upper elementary and into the middle school level. And then we're going to take it up, moving on up to doing on-screen digitizing using Google My Maps, which is most appropriate for the middle school level. And then we're going to move on to using a comprehensive web mapping interface, ArcGIS Online, which is most appropriate to bring in high school. And then finally, we're going to look as far as the use of GIS software with QGIS, which is a free and open source software. The first step in bringing about the use of emerging technology as an instructional tool in the K12 classroom, it always begins with the development and utilization of structured exercises. And in late 2015, as the geospatial technology evolved and with the web mapping tools in the development of story maps, and at that time became available an easy to use story map interface to be able to click layers on and off, and gave an simplistic interface that would be very easy for students and teachers to use. And in that development is with some of the teachers that we worked with in developing those exercises, the comment was made that if a teacher could not figure out how to use this interface within 30 minutes, they really didn't belong in the classroom. With this new story map template, what we started to do was to develop story maps with layers aligned to California curriculum, beginning at grade 5 up through grade 12 across content areas. As of this date, February of 2019, we've got approximately 120 lessons across content area grades 5 through 12, and I would say that probably about 40% of them are within the history and social studies due to the adoption of the new framework, and then the second largest concentration of lessons are with earth and environmental science. but we also have, again, across the content area. So we're going to take a look at that, the interface with the structured exercises. Most of these exercises come along with a student instruction and question sheet that teachers can easily add or delete questions from there or make changes. The development of these lessons, its content, its layers, was very much driven by K12 teachers throughout California, which have been part of our network. These structured lessons are based upon the ability of students to be able to click different data layers on and off. And on this image you can see as far as the drop box of being able to click layers on and off. Because of the structure of creating these story maps, it does require to have all the layers to be on as far as to have it be saved. So typically the first instruction in the exercises is to turn off all layers except. So to be able to do that, it is very easy to just check the boxes on and off to make those different combinations. One of the things in our field testing that we did note as compared to regular paper maps is that within the area as far as special education is teachers noted that students had an easier time comprehending the relationships of the material as compared to paper maps by being able to check them on and off. They were able to much easily filter the information. As layers get checked off, what happens is the legend on the left side of the interface, that layer then disappears out of the legend, which also helps the student to be able to filter that they're not distracted by symbols and information that is not present on the map itself. Besides the ability to check layers on and off, this interface also provides the ability to change the transparency level of each layer one at a time. And again, that's something that we have done in our instructions on various exercises to be see-through and to be able to better see comparisons. In addition to turning the layers on and off and changing transparency, this interface also provides the ability to change base maps. And again, the difference in manipulating having different base maps is students can be able to see different information or different views that they can make conclusion or inferences about what they are seeing on the base map, whereas a base map of imagery will have a different perspective than a base map of showing streets, or maybe a base map which is looking as far as at terrain. So again, this is another advantage of using digital geography and this type of interface versus traditional paper maps. Another feature of the interface that we use for our structured exercises is the measurement tool. And this gives you the ability to use a cursor to be able to measure the area, distance, or the latitude and longitude of a point. The last thing that I want to bring to your attention in the interface we use is that the features or the layers is when you click on a lot of them, it brings up a pop-up as far as information. One of the big differences, or the big difference with using this type of interface as far as what makes GIS or Geographic Information Systems, it's not just a digital image of what would be a paper map. What you do is you have the interactivity, and you've got built into those layers data behind those features that are on the map, and that information is known in the linguistic of GIS of being attributes. And as those are built, and again as maps are being built, is you can basically feature different attributes which is in the table behind the map image. One of the things that we did is we built our data tables as far as the attributes going along with the features on the map. Is we did in many instances link them to internet sites for further information, further exploration, and we did a lot of this with students grades 5 through 8 in mind to be able to encourage reluctant readers to be exploring in depth of what they are looking at and for further information on analysis. After adoption of structured exercises, the next step in getting the utilization of geospatial technology in our K12 classrooms is having teachers use as an instructional tool a simple web mapping interface. And what we recommend to start off with is the National Geographic Map Maker, which is free, accessible off the web. And from this image you can see what you get to in the page that does have a tutorial. Teachers would be able to learn this very quickly using this tutorial that I would say within an hour to an hour and a half they should feel very comfortable using the National Geographic Mapmaker interface. The National Geographic Mapmaker interface is very applicable and useful at the upper elementary level. The students easily like using this. The main goal as far as for those grade levels and starting the process is for students to understand and to be able to bring in different data layers of what is a data layer and be able to explore and make comparisons. The National Geographic Mapmaker interface has approximately 90 layers that can be loaded and viewed as being checked on and off in different combinations. From our experience in field testing, we found, particularly with the upper elementary students and also middle school students as well, that they did enjoy exploring and selecting and choosing from the different layers and making comparisons. Like the interface that we use for our structured exercises, the National Geographic Mapmaker also has the ability to change the transparency as far as on the different layers. Which I do not have a separate slide here in this presentation, but the National Geographic Mapmaker also provides a small variety of base maps to select from as well. The next step into bringing geospatial technology into the K12 classroom is to introduce and have the students begin doing on-screen digitizing. This is most appropriate to begin doing at the middle school level. We also have found that the best interface available to do this is the Google My Maps. Now, Google My Maps, the one difference on that between the two other interfaces that we introduce is that they do not have any data layers to be accessed. This is strictly a tool for on-screen digitizing. Using this tool and interface at the middle school level has some great advantages. The first of all is that developmentally we have moved away from or beyond a big concern for eye-hand coordination, and again, a lot of teachers at the middle school, particularly in history social studies, will use pre-printed maps or duplicating maps and crayons, colored pencils, and text, and using this tool eliminates those needs. It's a lot neater on the classroom. You don't have a lot of mess on the floor at this age group. The Google My Maps interface is found through a Google account through the Drive as far as creating a new document and going to the More, and then you've got the added menu, and Google My Maps is included in that menu. It's very easy to learn. The kids will pick up on it very quickly, but we will point out a couple things here. The on-screen digitizing tools in Google My Maps are very easy to use. On this image, I've pulled down as far as I clicked on the button to draw lines and areas. There's also a button there adjacent to it for putting on points. The kids will figure this out very quickly as far as being able to do that. You basically click on it as far as on the line or the area. You start drawing. You complete it. The kids you and the kids will be very quickly be able to figure out as far as how to change colors of what you draw, so that this is very easy to use. Google My Maps also has a variety of base maps that can be used. As you can see, as far as legend area, as far as on the bottom portion of it, I have clicked on the base maps, and the kids can change again as far as the types of base maps they want to use to draw to as their background and drawing stuff. You've got the possibilities using the imagery to zoom into areas to be able to trace buildings and things like that. So this again is a very easy and useful tool to use. Within as far as the online digitizing tools, once you draw something, as I've done here, an outline of Colorado, you can bring in a box, you can have a text so the students can put text in describing what it is. Also, Google My Maps does provide the ability there to also add into that text box to bring in a link to a photograph or a video. And again, one of the advantages as far as for the design and learning for middle school students is that if you're thinking paper maps and they're drawing with colored pencils and crayons and writing some descriptions or a title, is that I can't write what they read as far as neatness. So again, this makes it a lot easier to review and look at what the students produce, and I believe that they will also be more satisfied with their product. Google My Maps includes a measure tool for distances, which is demonstrated here in this image. Google My Maps also has the ability to bring in tables in the form of a spreadsheet. This is very convenient as far as for those of you that are already using Google Sheets with your students, is that they can create a spreadsheet with location data, that they would need fields, separate ones for latitude and longitude, and then with the other information that you want to be able to bring into the map for it to be displayed. If you're not using Google Sheets, may say Microsoft Excel, this can be done in the same basic process, and I would suggest that those spreadsheets be saved in a CSV format. Utilizing the spreadsheet tool at this stage to create some point data with some other information is good training as far as for the students to prepare them for using ArcGIS online as far as creating custom point data, I should say. Recently, Google My Maps upgraded to include the ability to classify data which is in a table. So in this image, what we have is an example with data that was imported from a Google Sheet, which had locations around the United States with temperature data for different months. And the attribute that was chose is to show the difference between the highest month and the lowest month on the temperatures as part of an earth science lesson to demonstrate the difference between the season as far as heating and cooling between the coastal regions and the interior of a continent. The addition of the ability of Google My Maps to do this type of classification, it does make it possible to utilize Google My Maps at the high school at a bare minimum of some of the intentions of the history social science framework of being able to create digital maps to support arguments. So this is a way that you can look as far as different data, as far as statistical data, is to visualize that information in support of an argument. The most comprehensive of the web mapping interfaces is ArcGIS Online. It includes as far as a deep set of layers. It can do on-screen digitizing. It can create story maps. It is the most complete web mapping as far as interface out there. You've got two levels of accounts. You've got a public account that's free, which for the most part of what you would have students do is sufficient, and then you've got an organizational subscription account, which Esri actually provides for free to K12 sites. It is this interface which does it all for the high school level of what the expectations are within the history social science framework. It is also a tremendous tool dealing in science as well, particularly with earth and environmental sciences. As mentioned, the ArcGIS Online Library, as far as available data layers, is very deep. As you can see from this image, as far as which is the search for layers, is that the ArcGIS Online Library contains close to 1.2 million different layers. It's substantially deep. It has access to a lot of federal governmental data layers. As you can see in this image, it shows a couple as far as demographic data from the United States Census. As far as in the area of science, you've got an awful lot of data layers from the United States Geologic Survey and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In the area of science, particularly earth and environmental science, because of that data, and because in today's world most of the earth science research is done through computer modeling, and with next generation science standards, is that students through the ArcGIS Online interface can grab many of those data layers to look at and make the same analysis and comparisons as earth scientists do. If you are a secondary earth science teacher and not using ArcGIS Online as an instructional tool, in today's world it is bordering on criminal negligence. Like the National Geographic Mapmaker and Google My Maps, ArcGIS Online also gives you the option of displaying a number of different base maps, which is demonstrated in this image. Also with ArcGIS Online, as far as in the display, is many times on features on the map, when you click on them, you get a pop-up with data, depending on how that is set up. And another feature as far as with the ArcGIS Online and the data display is the ability to make layers to a different level of transparency, like you also have in the National Geographic Mapmaker. Another feature in ArcGIS Online, as far as with a data layer, is you can, as far as do a search or filter depending on certain information on the data. If you want to search for a particular places in a particular state, that may be in the attribute data, or a particular statistical range of data, that is possible. And you also can open up and look at the tables of the data that are within a particular layer as well. Just like our structured story map exercises, which are built on the ArcGIS Online interface, Just in general, in ArcGIS Online, you do have the measure tool, which is shown in this image, where you can determine determine measurements such as area, distance, and latitude and longitude. Like Google My Maps, ArcGIS Online does have a on-screen digitizing function where you can put on points, lines, and areas. As far as the symbols for point data, you have a much greater variety as far as symbols within ArcGIS Online. And I would say that you've also got a broader color scheme and style for both lines and areas as well in ArcGIS Online. Like Google My Maps, ArcGIS Online with the on-screen digitizing is you can provide text to be creating pop-ups for what you do draw using the on-screen digitizing tools that are known in the interface as being map notes. ArcGIS Online allows you to import two types of layers. The first layer, like Google My Maps, is table or spreadsheet data, but unlike Google My Maps, the table must be in a CSV format, whereas with Google My Maps, you can import directly from your Google spreadsheet. The second type of data that ArcGIS Online allows you to import is data that is created in GIS software and saved as a Esri shape or SHP type file if the shape file with its multiple files is zipped. ArcGIS Online also includes a function of what they call scene, which is sort of a global type image, sort of a 3D, which has some similarities to Google Earth. And within the scene, you also have the ability to add layers onto this particular, as far as this particular display. This comes in real handy with certain aspects of earth science data, particularly with plate. I've used it with plate boundaries where things sort of get confusing as around the North Pole, as you can lay the plate tectonic boundaries, and then you could move the globe to see where the boundaries are that don't show up very well as far as on paper maps. ArcGIS Online also includes a function to create story maps, sometimes also referred to as web application maps, that have a website look to them. There's a variety of templates that basically, once students build their maps in a web map, that gets converted into this type of format. This image is an example of a middle school student work using what is known as the tabbed interface. Here is another example of a story map interface of some middle school student work as far as with the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, using what's known as the accordion template. This is a good template that I like using with students to show change over time. Here again is an example of another middle school student product using the story map tour template. This is a good template, and I know that there are a number of teachers, particularly in geography classes at the high school, sometimes middle school level, that have the kids sort of make tourist brochures. This is a way to take it into the digital environment with this particular map tour template. Beyond using the web mapping interfaces, for those that you have students with the ability or want to take it the next step, as far as students learning to use a GIS, Geographic Information System software, I'm recommending the use of what's known as QGIS, which is a free open source software out of Europe that works very well as for students to learn how to deal with GIS software. I've mainly used this with students at the high school level that are looking to kick up as far as their story maps or web maps to have with lines or polygons areas, as far as those to have data behind them. For students that have gotten to that proficiency of using ArcGIS online, for them to learn how to use this QGIS software to do on-screen digitizing, to create line and area files with data and putting the attributes into the corresponding spreadsheet, to be able to import that into ArcGIS Online, this is very doable, and I find for most students they usually can learn to do that and figure it out in about 4 hours time. So this is the final, this is the step if you want to get into software, and it's also a good transition for those that may want to get into geospatial technology and GIS as a profession, as preparing them to use the professional level of ArcGIS, Esri GIS software. For further information of how to implement geospatial technology into your K12 classroom and your school site or district, you can find further information by visiting our website, environmentalteched.net. We've got a geospatial technology section page there with a lot of information links. We have really attempted to make that the best one-stop shopping for California educators interested in using this technology into their classroom. Or you can email us at environmentalteched@outlook.com.